people was asking me, you know Maria Helena Dolan? I was like, what are you, stupid? Well, I remember one of the things was Maria, I would replace her. When she left, I was the replacement for the organization.
Yeah, right.
That's how I started getting on boards. Maria's leaving, they need a Latina there. I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, I was born in San Juan, 1938. My dad is white, got red hair. My mom looks like me. So you know, back in 1938 in Puerto Rico, they were not married. She was pregnant, so they had to get the hell out of Puerto Rico. So my dad came to New York and sent for my mom a year later. And my mom tried to get rid of me because she did not want to leave Puerto Rico. And she was the maid at some rich house, and he was the gardener. That's how they met. So this woman called my dad and said she's going to have an abortion. And my dad came back on a banana boat and took her ass to New York City. And took my little brother, he was 3, I was 4, he was 2. And from the very beginning, I was the mother. My mother went to work, and I took care of my brother. During those times, it was gangland. I lived on 102nd Street in Madison Avenue. 104th Street was the border for the Latin turbans. And the other side was the black gangs. And on the other side there was still some Italians. So what did I have to do? I had to join all 3 gangs in order to get from my house to the school, because if you cross the borders with my little brothers, they were going to kick our asses. So I always had this personality, and so I hung out with a lot of different people, and my mother thought, for some strange reason, that we were having sex, because in Puerto Rico, I found out later, women and men are not friends. The women well, I think it's changed a little now, but still the men go out drinking and the wives stay home with the kids, you know. So I grew up sneaking to Harlem so my mother would not beat me. And I told you about how I ended up in all these institutions. And now, by the time I was 16 and this woman got me out, I had to stay with my mother for 2 years and not do anything to give her a chance to put me back. But then I was going to go to Westfield, which was for real women. So, honey, I went to night school. I did everything I could to educate myself and stay busy while taking care of my children. But I really resented that I had to take care of those kids, because while my other friends were out doing stuff, dating, and my father for Christmas gave me a broom and a mop because I was complaining how old the ones I had were. So I used to complain to my friend's mom, who was Italian. And one Christmas she bought me a wool skirt, a sweater, and I was able to get out of my cotton. So she said, you wear it 3 or 4 times, you hang it up, and then you bring it to me and I'll send it to the cleaners for you. Well, after a while, people were like, girl, you need to take that shit off, because I wanted to wear my wool and my... So I started working to save money to buy clothes. But I used to go to the cheap Corvette stores and whatnot. I met people who taught me how to dress. I met this designer. She said, Ada, 3 colors, not black and white. Black and white and a touch of yellow. Keep it low key. Don't be loud with flowers and all that shit. You're yellow. You can't wear certain colors. So I became kind of a little fashion plate from these people showing me. And I always listen. If you have knowledge, I want it. So by the time I was 18, I was working for Columbia Pictures. I asked my mother, what time was I born? 8:30 in the morning. Great. 8:30 in the morning, I had a U-Haul downstairs with all my friends. I had an apartment that I moved to because the month before, my dad was yelling at me about it. I said, Dad, what makes you right? He goes, I pay the rent. Oh, when I got paid, I told my mother, can I pay the rent? She said, no, honey, save your money. I said, I want to pay the rent. I want to help you guys. So when my father came at me, it was, excuse me, I paid the rent this month. My dad was like, what? You told me what made you right was you paid the rent. So I paid the rent. He was ready for me to go the hell out of there. So I didn't see them I left home, and for 3 years I didn't see them. And one day I was sitting at Horn and Hearted, and my mother tapped me in the back. And she said, we're still at 50 Gouverneur Street. You can visit. I was like, by that time, I had a relationship with this woman named Shorty, who looked just like a man. So we were like two dykes going together. And so, of course, in the gay community, they started calling me a she-she. I didn't give a shit. And my mother was like, I would like you not to bring your friends here. My dad said she could bring her friends here. I said, he pays the rent. So I decided, no children. I wanted to travel. Where did I want to go? Wherever was a gay community. I moved to San Francisco. I moved to Denver. I lived in Mexico, Puerto Vallarta. And I was always, somebody was there that I could go to. I always was, okay, we could do this together. And then, when you do that, you can't keep a job. So I was like, I'm an accountant. I remember what he told me. I got all these business cards, and I elevated myself. And at that time, whatever your business card said, that's what you were. So I really was blessed. I had a jewelry shop, and I learned that jewelry is like baking. You make a mold, you stick it in the oven, and you get however many pieces you want. Well, guess what I was making? Vaginas and penises. That was when they were having sex jewelry, well, I forgot what it was called, but the cakes had penises on it.
Right.
And I said, I got a shop in the Village on Carmine Street, 22 Carmine Street. And I was selling sexual jewelry. Well, I couldn't keep it. And I was the only black Puerto Rican going to 47th Street. And so the Jewish people were so kind to me. He was like, okay, Ada, these diamonds are flawed, but nobody knows because they don't know about clarity. So they would give me a little handful of diamonds for, let's say, $300. They were like, you could get $1,000 for each of those diamonds. So I learned how to set, and I made so much money. So I was helping. That's when the Women's House of Detention was on 14th Street.
Right.
And my shop was like a couple of blocks away. So I used to support that, and then they were trying to get a gay center. And I helped look for it. We found a firehouse, and that became the gay center. And at that time, a lot of people were in Overeaters Anonymous. So I became a sponsor for fat people. And they came over to the shop, and they became my employees, my friends, and whatnot. So we started this group called Salsa Soul Sisters because it was all black women. And I was like, fuck the soul, what about the salsa? So they became Salsa Soul Sisters. And we were really integrating the village and the community.
They were famous, Salsa Soul Sisters. I heard about it down here. And also that Firehouse is Gay Activist Alliance.
Yes.
Like that.
And so what happened was all of those people became my customers. So I didn't have to advertise or anything like that. And so from there, I went to San Francisco because the communes were starting. And I went there and I moved into a commune and I learned 90% of, they had hexing classes. If somebody said, you got a big nose, say thank you for noticing. I learned about not being jealous. You ask permission if you wanted to fuck somebody's partner. And I was like, oh. So I had the commune mentality. But then I realized, being an accountant, that somebody owned that house. And they were making a lot of money on it. So guess what I wanted? A commune, my own commune. And so that time, black and white men together was a big thing in San Francisco. So I got to know a couple of those boys that had money, and we went to Denver. And I lived in Aurora, Colorado, which was a bedroom community. And then you went downtown Denver. And I was Puerto Rican, skinny, thought I was hot shit. So I thought the world was on my feet. And I knew I could buy wholesale jewelry. I used to go to New York to the jewelry show or to the gift show. And any little corner I would set up shop. And that's how I made my living. And then those that needed an accountant, gay entertainers and the drag queens who didn't know how to manage their money, I was their accountant. So I got to know all the famous people. And I moved to Christopher Street. I was the only woman living at 31 Christopher Street. It was all gay boys and me. And it was wonderful. My family got worried because I was jumping from place to place. And I said, I promise you, the next place I move to, I'll stay a little bit longer. Well, guess where the next place was? Atlanta, Georgia. I came here, and because my friends really was upset that I was leaving, they called. There was this woman called Gloria McCleary. She used to have dances for gay people. And Sharon, what was Sharon's name? I can't think of her last name, but she was an entertainer. She used to come down here and sing. So Gloria when I came to Atlanta, they took all the Joan Gardner and all the activists, had a party to welcome me to Atlanta. So I was politically connected immediately, but no one had heard of Puerto Ricans. I was the first. They were Mexicans here, but there were no Puerto Ricans. And I always kept my Puerto Rican roots. So I was so upset about, what the fuck, there's no integration. Atlanta's supposed to be so great so where's the greatness? Only for whites? So I did Latinos en Acción. I worked for Campbell on the diversity board. And I was on every fourth Tuesday. I was one of the few black people in Fourth Tuesday. And I would integrate these organizations, and I'm so loud that, but I give people respect. So even though I was loud, and one day Joan Garner said to me, Ada, stop acting out. What does that mean? She says, you get so excited, you get so upset, you have to learn to control yourself. I'm like, you control yourself. I am how I am. Why I gotta control myself? What I'm saying is true. And you are part of this blacks can't talk. I'm not part of that. So I will have to open my own thing because people wouldn't let me talk in their organization. They gave you rules and shit that you had to, So I have my own store, my own organization, and I was able to mix the two. Then I met Pat Hussein, who thought, oh man, I love you, girl. And
She's great.
How old were you then?
I was 55. Tell you why I know, because I met this young immigrant named Maria,
Oh, yeah.
who, when she came to Atlanta, all the Latins that used to come in, Rosanna Cruz and everything, they would say, go find Miss Ada. So we started going together. But she wasn't used to my Piper thing. She was afraid that they were following her. She was paranoid, but she was cute. So I stayed with her for 13 years. It was, I was like, after her, I thought I'd never have a relationship, you know. But because of her, we used to meet in the library downtown, have meetings. We had this organization called LO50, Lesbians Over 50. And it was like, you have something to say, you have something to give, don't, you know. And people would say, Ada, why are you so controversial? You don't have to come to my meetings. You don't have to come to my store. Right now I'm 55. And a lot of the leaders liked it. Kwanzaa Hall was just starting. He was trying to run for school superintendent or whatever. He called me and he said, I need you to organize this, just like you organize Latinos and all that. I want you to organize people that'll vote for me. So that was my first political connection. I created a thing for Kwanzaa, and then everybody heard when it was so successful. Him and Natalie told everybody. So I didn't have a resume, and I wasn't about to make a resume because what kind of resume was I going to make? So people would be asking me for my resume, my college degree. I was like, I don't have either one of the two. Well, you want us to hire? I said, well, if you don't like the way I work, you can fire me. What's the problem? So at that time, Deborah Richardson was running the National Black Arts Festival. And she said, I like her attitude. And Judith Server was like, well, if we try you out, you got to change your perfume. Because she was allergic to my perfume. I said, you got to move your office away from me because why would I change my perfume? I don't want this job. And this volunteer, Larry Fagan, was there. He said, please, miss, take the job. We'll help you. We'll help you. So that was my first job, National Black Arts Festival. And then I was the volunteer coordinator for the Atlanta Jazz Festival. And from there, because those people are very political, I became Shirley Franklin's volunteer coordinator. And then I went to Lisa Borders. And then I went to the AIDS Memorial Quilt. I was the outreach coordinator for the AIDS Memorial Quilt for 28 chapters. When I quit, guess what happened?
Fell apart.
They closed the chapters. It was like, how in the hell are you going to have a quilt that's nationwide and just have an office in Atlanta? Julie, you can't do that. But I used to go, Pride had a beer booth, and I would collect money at Pride, and I used to go to the conferences and the AIDS conferences, and I would sit in the hall all day. Give me $1, give me $1. One time this girl came back, she said, I gave you $1 yesterday. I said, did you shit yesterday? That got around. To this day, they asked Brad, where's the woman that said? So that they thought it was funny, and they came and gave. So when I quit, they didn't have the funding for the chapters. The parents gave a lot of money. But they needed that executive salary that's insane. Tyler Perry donated the building that's now on that walk that they've made. And the quilt was there because the quilt doesn't fit in too many places. And they had a woman, Deborah, she was so devoted to the warehouse. So I said, I don't care if they take it to San Francisco because those boys love the quilt and they're gonna share it. Because when it was in Atlanta, who knew the quilt was here? You know, people got pissed at me because as much as I love the quilt, I was okay with it going to San Francisco, and that woman, who took the quilt to San Francisco? The governor, the woman, it was I'll think of her name. She came and she loved that quilt, so she took it to San Francisco. And you know what? I used to say, is it that I'm bad luck for these organizations? Because when I leave, they close. And then what happened was, what I realized later on was that I came on board as everything was changing in Atlanta. The gay clubs were going away. People were trying to gentrify the Fourth Ward, which they finally did. And so all of the things like the National Black Arts Festival, they didn't have space for the local artists. I would have let them show in my office before the festival started. They had solo their art because they wanted them to pay $600 to display. Okay, is this for the people or what? You know. But I met people like Maya Angelou, Miss King. Miss King would say, Miss Ada, you don't have volunteers. You have an army. So I would be like, okay, Miss King, can I take the kids and show them Dr. King's desk, the Southerners? The kids would go, and I would say, this is sacred ground. Dr. King sat here. Then they would go around telling people, this is sacred ground. Dr. King sat here. So they got a new respect for the area, you know. So it was a wonderful experience because I made a difference. Those Latinos that used to come from Mexico, they didn't speak English. They had no clue, and they were being discriminated. I went and found all the Spanish up by Buford Highway, got them jobs, and they were willing to learn English. They all learned English after a while, and I felt really good about that. And a lot of them made good money afterwards, and they were the ones supporting my other ventures, you know. So by the time I opened Grassroots, I had Latinos that were giving me money. Each of them, I brought 26 kids to Puerto Rico. Each of them had a chaperone. I'm going to send you those books. And we took pictures, and then they went back and held court. We had meetings that they would tell people what they saw and how they saw it. And those are my biggest support system right now. They get paid. They're like, Miss A, how you doing? I'm like, yeah, you can send me some shea butter. You can't find a lot of this stuff in Puerto Rico.
I brought you some.
So, see? So, I am not shy. If I need something and you're asking me what I need, I'm going to tell you. So, when the hurricanes came, Phil McDonald sent the national, federal, whatever it was, that went there to Puerto Rico. Tankers pulled up in my house.
This was the last hurricane?
With
Maria.
food.
Maria? Yeah. Hurricane
The
Maria.
With
bad one.
food. They were ready to take me and my mother to the States. They left us army rations because Phil McDonald called him and said, I got a good friend that's stuck in Puerto Rico and she needs help. My mother said, you go. I'm not going. So I didn't come, but those are the connections that you make, you know. I was so grateful. And people like Maria and different people kept, you know, I get so much support from them, which you go, wow, I didn't do it for that, but I tell you what, when my roof fell, Southerners on New Ground sent me $10,000.
Wow.
I could not believe it. So I was like, okay, y'all say you're gonna give me some money. How am I gonna know when you're giving it to me? They said, Ada, go to your bank, look in your bank account. They have put $10,000 in my bank account because I helped when they were struggling. You never do that for that. You never think that's going to happen. I didn't even ask. Pat Hussein called them because she called me one day and said, "What? Something about when you're coming to Atlanta." I said, "Well, you crazy? I don't have traveling money. I'm a single lesbian. We don't prepare." That's another thing. I've helped a lot of lesbians now. They call me still for who should I vote for? What should I do? And I say, you know what? I don't know what's going on with the politics. You got to check it out. But I tell you one thing: if you're getting older, you need to prepare for old age because lesbians don't prepare for old age. You think you got it, and no matter how much money you made in your life, when you retire, you're on your own. You have a house that needs upkeep. Your health, a lot of shit is not covered. I'm blessed that people have been so kind to me. You better take this fucking check. I can afford it. Without me asking. And that's the wonderful feeling that people really care about you. And it's not because of the money, it's because of when I come to town, I have to make a list of who I'm going to see. I used to sit in Whole Foods. I was going to sit in Piedmont Park this time, but the weather is too rainy, so. But I got my flowers while I was still alive, So I'm really grateful. And shit, so I'm working on that. But there's a lot of them in the Auburn Avenue Library.
Yes.
Yeah.
They've been real nice.
That's a good collection they got there, but still, you got yours. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't show you, but I got pictures, from when I was a little girl in Puerto Rico, and of course I made my first communion, all that. But yeah, I mean, I've got stuff here that I have to label.
I don't have. My family was so workaholic that they never took pictures, and I guess they were poor. I don't know why, but we don't have that many pictures. I have pictures of my dad because, when he came over, he made a Jewish friend because the boat that they came over on was a bomb went on because he came over during World War I, I think, and he saved this guy's life. So the guy took my dad under his wing, and he was like an ambulance chaser. When the Puerto Ricans got hurt, my dad would take him to the lawyer, and he would get 15% of the case. And we would say, "Don't tell my dad you got hurt, please." We were so embarrassed that he, if you fell on a city street, he would say, "Don't move." We were like, "Oh shit, don't tell my dad." But we didn't realize that made us be the rich kids on the block because we had money that other people didn't have. And I used to think it was because my dad was white. But then I found out it was because he was an ambulance chaser. That's what it was.
He had household.
Huh?
He had household.
Yeah. He was a dishwasher. And he told us that he was a waiter. So I went to the restaurant because I wanted some dessert, 42nd Street. And I asked for the waiter. And they were like, "These two black kids are looking for you." And he was like, "I don't know those kids." My dad came out the kitchen. "What are y'all doing here?" We said, "Dad, we thought you were the waiter, not the dishwasher." I went home and told the whole neighborhood my dad was the fucking dishwasher. He never forgave me. He was like, "Girl, Miss Mouth, But thank God we all, we all grew up okay. My brothers never went to jail. They were crazy, but I was able to set them straight. It's like, you don't want to go to jail, honey. The drugs are not what you want to do. That is a healthy cat.
Yes.
In Rico.
And you know something? I learned early in life. It don't matter if you don't have money. If you got good friends, you have a place to stay, you have something to eat. Human connections are so important. People act like, okay, if you're not rich or if you're not this, that, honey, you don't know what that person is going to be able to contribute to your life and what you can contribute to theirs. Human relationships are so important. These kids these days always on the,
Yeah.
they don't even look at you in the face, you know. I always took advantage of, people thought I was exotic. I had long hair, big tits, and an attitude.
Good hair.
So people wanted to always feel my hair. And the other thing is they were amazed that I always had money. Because I was an accountant. And I knew I always had a car. I had a car in New York when I was 21. I bought a car. And I went to pick up the car, and the guy was like, you can't drive because you don't have a license. I said, you sold me a car that you're not going to let me pull out of here with? I had to call my friend to drive my car out. Of course, nobody wanted to teach me how to drive, which is why I went and bought my own car. Because people were like, you're going to crash my car. You're going to crash my car. Fuck you, I'll buy a car and then I'll learn how to drive. I always had the attitude that if I want to do something, you are not going to stop me. I don't know where that came from. Maybe because don't forget, I came here, my mother didn't speak English, my dad didn't speak English, so I was the interpreter. I learned English first. A was awful, B was bad, C was crazy, D was delightful, F was fabulous because D was delightful. When my mother found out what they really meant, she beat the shit out of me because I had her duped all these years thinking I was such a great student. But why wasn't I a great student? I didn't understand the language and I needed glasses. No one figured out I needed glasses. I was blind. So I couldn't see the board, you know? And so you learn to fake it. And so when I started going to the village, down in Greenwich Village, I would go in the door with red pumps and, loud dressing. I didn't know at the time that was very attractive. So people would send me drinks. I don't drink. And I always said, my mother used to say, if you're under the influence, you don't know what you're doing and people could take advantage of you. Scorpio, I don't drink. To this day, I don't drink. Drugs, they used to call me Crazy Ada. So I would say, if I am Crazy Ada on the natch, could you see me on the drugs? And in those days, people were taking drugs and they were itching and seeing ants and shit. I was like, ooh. So I never did drugs. And people like intellectuals. And they would talk to me, and I was like, I can't go to that because I got to go to school. I can't go to that because I got to go to work. I always worked. My parents taught me a very good work ethic. So a lot of the dykes didn't have jobs because of the way they dressed. So I knew better. I would dress regularly, go to work, and then I have a picture that I'm going to send you. I look like a boy. My brothers loved that I was gay. They told everybody, my sister's a lesbian. And so they would have my dad buy the suits a size bigger so my tits could fit in. And they were proud of the fact that I was a lesbian. And they would egg me on. I used to go to the bar. When I left home, I moved to 116th Street and Lenox Avenue. And at night, I used to go to the gay bars on 125th Street. And the guy asked me for my ID. He said, you can't be in here drinking, girl. So they were like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to serve you Coke and a cherry. And you're going to look like you're drinking. But you're not going to be drinking. And at 9 o'clock at night, your ass is going to go home. So I was protected by the boys in the bar. So I was able to hang out and still, And I remember once the Marines were coming in, and I said, oh, he's so cute, I'm going to give him a piece. The guy that was protecting me kept me, his name was Tucker. Tucker would protect me, walk me home. But since I said I was gonna give it to, I was just talking shit. But he took it literally. He really thought I was gonna go to bed with this Marine, so he raped me.
Jesus.
I was like, but to be honest with you, it didn't really faze me. You know, people get all tormented and shit. I just figured this motherfucker, I'm gonna get him. But then I got over it. I don't hold a grudge. I said, you shouldn't have said you were. So I trusted him again. And guess what? He raped me again.
Jesus,
I told a friend of mine, I was so angry. She said, Ada, you can't, just because people are good to you at times, you can't trust everybody. And so they taught me how to carry, at that time you used to carry a razor blade in your mouth. If you could just put it in your mouth and slit somebody's throat with it. But see, I'm not that type. I was too much of a coward to do that. But I had lye. In that era, people used to use lye to clear the bathrooms. So I always had a little vial of lye in my pocket to blind them if they fucked with me again. I mean, he did it to me twice, and I was waiting for the third time because I had my lie. I didn't tell him. I just was so angry, but he knew better. I don't know, he never tried again. But I purposely stayed his friend because I wanted to throw lye in his eyes, you know. But I learned a good lesson from that. No matter how much you think people like you and take care of you, there's a time that they can go bad, you know. So I was very careful because a lot of straight men did not like lesbians. They just act like they did. And then once they find out that you were gay, they were like gonna hurt you, you know. So I hear people that get raped, they ruins their life by the grace of God. I thought, well, I still got it, so, you know, I wasn't tormented by it. I never told my family because my brothers would have killed him, you know. And I also had 4 male brothers before I had sisters. So they taught me how to fight, how to defend myself, especially when I left home. They were like, girl, you don't want to fight a man. You want to kick him in his balls and run. And shit like that. So I knew how to defend myself. And I was like, okay, a friend of mine got beaten up in the train by some drunk, and I was like, I'm not taking the train with a woman in the middle of the night going to the village. That's how I bought a car. I had a car from the day I was 21 to today. I've always had a car. I don't have no fancy anything, but I always had a car. Because you needed it, you know, if you were gay and dressing in drag, you know. I didn't do drag that much. I did drag at night when I was going to the clubs, but my job, I needed to look like a girl. And I was like, I would have a butch one day and a femme the next day, depending on who I like. You know, people were like, I'm a butch. What? I love women. So if I fell in love with a butch, that's who I was going with. If I fell in love with a femme, that's who I was going with, you know.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about titles. So I went with this Swedish and Puerto Rican woman. Her name was Shorty, Ellen Strand. I'm going to send you a picture. She was, Swedish people, if you say, I want to kill myself, she would say, are you sure? How can I help you? There wasn't a jealous bone in her body. Very accommodating. But you had to let them be free too. And I had learned from the commune
Not to be jealous.
not to be jealous, not to take it personal. Say thank you in a minute. You know, I had skinny legs and big nose, and thank you for noticing, you know. So people would say, you think you're cute? No, I know I'm cute. I may not be your type, but I don't have a complex about how I look. You know, a lot of people don't want to walk with a cane. Hello, you need a cane. Why are you gonna hurt yourself because you worried about what people think? My friend just gave me this cane. I have a collection of canes. They match my shoes. They match my this. You know, I have a walker, and I take my time because if I fall, I'm gonna hurt myself. You know, you care about how you look, but to a certain extent, you gotta self-love first. You know, so. And I've never been full of myself. Like, people want to write about me. I don't give a shit if, now I realize the importance of sharing your history.
Yeah.
But there was a time when people were like, write a book. Write a book. I know what I did. I don't need to document but now I get it, as my kids still call me and still tell me about the difference I made in their life. So I go, well, then you go and make a difference in somebody's life, you know?
How would you say that?
You are a product of your actions. If you are lonely, it's because you have not reached out. Because if you reach out to people, they will befriend you. You got to love yourself. And one of the ways to love yourself is to do good because you feel good. When you do a good act, I give homeless people food and clothing. I just gave away all my pocketbooks because I don't use them. I feel so good that they have leather, something to put their important papers in, because when it rains, I wasn't using them. I got a cane, I can't. So you lead by example. Don't lock yourself up with your little cell phone. Look at people in the eyes. When people talk to me, they got to look me in the face. My nieces and nephew text me, Titi Aida, we love you. I got them all on the phone the other day. And I tell it like it is. When was the last time that you came to see me? Do you know what I look like? If you saw me in the street, would you know who I am? Texting doesn't do shit for me. You don't ask me what I need. And that's okay, but don't call me telling me you love me because you don't know me. You know, they come to Puerto Rico. We heard you could cook. You came here for me to cook for you? And you call that love? I really call them on their actions. You know, you want me to show you how to do this or that, I will show you. I'm not going to do it for you. You know? The same thing with my friends. I tell them, look, you come to Puerto Rico, you don't have to pay me. You can stay in my house. I'll drive you around. Don't fucking tell me about, when you come to Atlanta, you don't call me. Hey, it works two ways. You understand? There's a plane that goes to Puerto Rico. So I think that how you live your life, you got to treat people the way people are worried about their ancestry. Hey, those people are gone. They did what they did. What are you creating for the future?
Yeah.
What are you doing with your life? Especially when you're taking those drugs. Who are you hurting? Those electric cigarettes, I take them off. And then the thing is, I challenge it. You'll hit me because I took it from you. Because it's poison. Then when they see their friends go crazy, they come back and tell you, thank you. Sometimes you got to tough love. You got to, they don't like you for a while. But when they realize, they come back. You know, people are always trying to be their friend. I'm not your friend. I'm here to teach you something. And if you don't want to learn, get the hell out of here. You know?
Yeah.
And when they run around, who are you hurting? You're the one going to get the disease. You know, you're jealous. If they want to be with you, they're gonna be with you. All the jealousy in the world is not gonna bring somebody back. And you got something different. There's somebody out there who wants what you got. But if you don't let yourself be open to it, you're gonna hang out with the first person that doesn't really care for you. You close yourself in. The more people you know, the more people you meet, the happier you are. But you got to be selective. I don't hang out with open drunks. I don't judge you. I know something had to happen to ruin your life, but I don't got to be letting you drive me around, kill me and you. I'm very selective who I hang out with. And, you know, you got to respect yourself, you know. And I had a shop at the village. And what I would do is I would yell at them, when you come out, come to Obvious Choices. And I always had stores that were called The Giving Tree, Obvious Choices, Grassroots. And people would say, why did you name your store Obvious Choices? Because you have choices. So I would tell them, come to the store, and I would give them free little jewelry. And there was this artist who used to paint handmade shirts, and I would give in exchange for the little bit of their work, because I couldn't afford to pay them. But I just gave them stuff. And I trusted them. You know what? When people come out of jail, people act like they can't be trusted. And if you don't trust them, they sense that. So I would leave them in my shop and go get lunch. And people would say, how you know she wasn't going to steal from you? I didn't. But one way to find out. And people respect that you trust them. Or, you know, they came out of jail, nobody wanted to be with them. Or, come on, who are you to judge? You know? So I always treated everybody the same. And I always had little meetings in groups because you need something to do. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke. So basically I used to have a Chinese checkerboard all the time and have them play Chinese checkers, you know, to keep them busy, because what you gonna do? People gotta do something. So I would have $2 prize for whoever won the Chinese checker at the end of the week. They kept coming back for that. You know, I organized groups that would go down to the Pride and give out. We used to handwrite Obvious Choices is at the corner of 22 Carmine Street and hand it out. And then people would come, and in the back, each of the things had like you were number 1, number 2. So if 3 number 1s came in, I gave them a commission. And people really could use the money, because in those times, they were not hiring lesbians that looked like lesbians or gay guys, you know. So, because I was the youngest one, and everybody felt that I was there because I didn't, you know, you share why you're there. And so everybody felt that I was innocent and my mother had me in there wrongly. So everybody spoiled me. I was the baby. But then it was like, how do you fuck a woman? So I would get sex lessons from the experienced dykes. And I would be like, really? You go down on a woman? I was like, I don't think so. And they were like, well, you asked. And where do you hang out when you come out of jail? I didn't know the gay clubs. What they had community, it would be like you had aunts and uncles, you formed a gay family. I was like, cool. So I would go down to the clubs and ask people, what's your family? They're like, what? And I would tell them what people told me, and so they saw how innocent you were. They're like, girl, just go in there, have a good time. And you get to know the regulars at the clubs used to like hold tables for each other, and you know, and because I've never drank, They used to call me Virgin Mary. They called me Virgin Mary. But I danced. And I wanted to be on the dance floor all the time. And I wore loud. I have bad feet because I used to put on these spikes. In those days, I like red spikes or loud colors, and I'd be out there, you know. And so people wanted to learn how to Latin. And I would like kind of dance teacher, you know. And when people got jealous, like the women thought, I was the first one to go over and say, excuse me, I just want you to know there's nothing going on between me and your man. I don't want your man, you know. So I cleared that all up because people tend to think because you're dancing with their mate or you're friends with them that, no, don't misunderstand, you know. I don't know about now, but in those days, they would take you to a doctor and test you if you were a virgin or not.
What age?
Huh?
How old were you when it started?
I would say I was about 7. And the Latin community is very strict, especially with the girls. Now, the guys could do whatever the hell they want because they're men. But the women, it's almost like they have to be strict and be at home and all this and that. And because I ran with the guys, because first of all, I had 4 brothers. So they introduced me to their friends. I didn't know any girls at that when I first went there. I didn't really speak the language. So I used to hang out with my brothers. Well, my mother used to kneel us on rice. She would put rice on the floor, and then milk used to come in glass bottles. I would have a glass bottle on each of my hands, knelt on rice, and she would say, now I'll let you up when you tell me where you really were last night. Now, if she thought you were wrong, she would let you stay there till you dropped the bottles. If she believed you, she would let you get up. So I realized that she was in control. If I came in the house, I was supposed to get from school to my house in 15 minutes with my brothers in tow. If I got there after 3:15, she was beating my ass. So one day I said, wait a minute. If I get there at 3:15, she's going to hit me. If I get there at 5, what's the difference? So I started getting home at 7, 8 o'clock. And she would beat me and I would be expecting it. And then if you raise your hand, she said, why, you going to hit me back? I'm like, no. Don't make up shit. I wasn't going to hit you. But you know what, Mom? You're wrong. I know you're my mom, but you're wrong. I would always tell her she was wrong. And I think she started resenting that. And she would tell me, don't you tell your brothers that I'm wrong. They're listening to you. I'm like, well, she is wrong. You're going to beat me anyway, so I'm going to say whatever the hell I want to say. You know? And she got it. After a while, she would, in private, talk to me. Because she didn't want my brothers to hear me sassing her back. You know. She didn't want to hear American music. She always played that Spanish stuff. So, a friend of mine gave me a little portable, not a CD player, but they had these tiny little radios. And I used to sneak in my room and listen to it at night. She caught me. You're a sneak. Yeah, if you knew I had it, would you let me have it? So I let her know, you force us to be liars and sneaks because you don't accept anything we do. You brought us to this country, but you want us to still be in Puerto Rico. And I used to get, like I went to my Italian friend's house and she making spaghetti. I had never seen spaghetti in my life. So I said, can you give me a little bit of that so I can take it to my mother and show her what you eat? I would go to my black friend's house. Puerto Ricans make beans with sauce. They would make lima beans, white beans. And I would be like, can I have a little of that to take to my mother? Mama, what you tell people, I don't feed you or something? I said, no, I'm just bringing this so that you could see what they cook. It's not what you cook. So she started understanding that there was another way of eating besides rice and beans. I introduced Italian food to her. And then my friend's mom was kind enough to go to my mom and tell her that I was a friend of her daughter's. And if she wanted to, she became my mother's friend. She befriended my mother. And of course, my mother liked that. But she wanted to make sure I didn't talk the family business because I always had a mouth. I'm like, Mom, I don't talk to her mother. When I go there, it's me and her playing. Don't worry. I don't tell her what happens here anyway. But I did. I used to tell them, my mother's crazy. But, I can't tell her that because she beat my ass. So you can't tell her that you know this. And it was about clothes and shoes. Like, I wanted water boots. My mother didn't understand that all kids had rubber boots. She thought it was a luxury that I wanted. Like, Ma, everybody got boots. So I got my friend's mother to go talk my mother into giving me Angie's old boots. But they weren't really old, but we made my mother think they were old, so she would let me have them. And she wasn't stupid, so she would say, well, you think you're getting over? I know what you're doing. I'll be like, well, sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And, it's funny because guess who ended up taking care of her when she died? I went back 12 years and took care of her, which is why I'm in Puerto Rico. And I got to know her because since I left home, I never went back. But I got to know her and the way she thought, and she had mellowed out. And so I was grateful that I had that time to kind of make up. We talked a lot about my youth and how she was unaware of, customs. And she admitted to me that I taught her a lot. But at the time that it was going on, she couldn't accept that I was telling her she didn't know how to cook,